Welcome back to the Outfit Repeaters podcast. I am Megan.
I'm Shelby.
And we are your hosts. This week we are going to be recapping Season 1, Episode 3. Title of this episode is When Moms Attack. But before we get there, Shelby, you said we were going to talk about also what we're reading.
Yes. Also, apologies. The last episode I said we were recapping Pool Party, but we are not. We'll do that next week. So if you watched the wrong episode with us, pause this and then go watch When Moms Attack and then come back. Or you could just, go with the flow. So I am reading, I have a book on audiobook. I am reading The Seamstress of New Orleans, which is about the first all-female Mardi Gras crew.
Oh.
And two of their husbands end up dead, and they don't have any, connection or relation to each other because one's from New Orleans and one's from Chicago, but they end up in the same place, but their husbands' deaths are related. So that's been an interesting build-up. And then I am a history teacher, and I do a book report assignment, so I'm always looking for historical YA novels. So I'm reading a book. Is that you or me? Is that my cat?
I think it's a cat.
Miles, can you come get your cat?
You won't have to edit that out.
Oh my goodness, he can't help it. Oh no, he ran away.
Yeah, you went back on the bed.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I can reach on under there and get him if you want me to.
Is he reachable?
It's not a big bed. I'm gonna bait him into the actual pets. No, he's smart for that.
He wanted out, and then when we opened the door, he ran away.
Got him.
There
Naturally.
he is. Okay, bye-bye. Say bye-bye.
Bye, Waffy.
I can't wait to watch that back. Okay, so there is a author, Carolyn Meyer, who writes a lot of historical fiction. So I'm reading it's supposed to be autobiographical, but it's obviously written by Carolyn Meyer about Catherine de' Medici.
Oh.
So, which got me on a Medici kick because I'm still watching Reign. So
Nice.
so I am reading that because I'm always looking, because I teach the Medicis in the Renaissance, so I need more books associated with that time period. So I'm reading her pretend autobiography.
Pretend autobiography. Love that.
But yeah, and then, is that it? Yeah, those are my two I'm reading / listening to.
Cool.
What about you?
So I just finished Paris Hilton's memoir 2 days ago.
Oh, I wanna
Loved
read
it.
that.
Was fantastic. I am actually a glutton for celebrity memoirs, so this is right up my
Literally.
alley. Also, if you have any recommendations for celebrity memoirs, comment them down below.
Yes,
I may have read
please.
some of them, I may not, but I love a celebrity memoir, especially on audio, especially if that celebrity reads it.
Does she read it?
She does.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do that as my next audiobook.
Yes. And then I'm still reading the Throne of Glass series. I am currently 20 some odd chapters into Queen of Shadows.
Queen of Shadows was my favorite in the entire series.
I've seen that from a lot of people, so I'm excited, and I'm glad that it kind of had me into it from the first page. There
Yes.
wasn't really a lot of build, so anybody who reads fantasy knows that there's world building, and it can be very slow in the first 2/3 of a book. But I'm glad that we kind of hit the ground running on this one.
Oh my gosh, it is. When you get to Kingdom of Ash, especially, there's a lot of callbacks from Queen of Shadows, but also Assassin's Blade.
Ooh, love that, love that, love that.
I want to re-listen to the whole series because I physically read it, but I found so many podcasts about analyzing the different stuff and the themes. And there's one thing I can't tell you until you finish the series, but it's gonna have
You're dying to tell me.
it's gonna have your jaw dropped. I told my friend that got me on this. Shout out to Christy. My friend that put me on Sarah J. Maas. I told her this, and she was like, I never noticed that. And I was like, It's a good one.
That's what's so fun about reading, too,
It's a good
is
one.
that you so often, like, I would notice something different than you would notice, and you would notice something different than Christy would notice, and so everybody kind of, like, gets different bits and pieces of information that are, like, just kind of, like, stick in your mind more.
Yes. I'm so excited for this journey for you. I have another friend at school that's reading it, and she read the first 4 books in, like, 3 weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
So she was like, this is amazing. I was like, I agree. I agree. I want to get into ACOTAR. I haven't read ACOTAR yet.
Yeah.
But I want to keep starting it, but I keep finding other, like, standalone books. I'm like, let me read this and then I'll get into it. But I just need to go ahead and start the first one.
Yeah, and, like, I'm very curious to see if you'll like ACOTAR. I really liked it, but that was the first Sarah J. Maas that I read, and it is very much romantasy more than just pure fantasy, so I'm wondering if, like, you would like that component of it, or if you would be like, oh, like, where's the fighting?
No, I think I will, because, okay, my expectations are, as a reader, I'm very easily entertained. So some people will be like, oh, I hate that book. And I was like, really? Because I liked it. I just read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden.
Love.
And it was good because it didn't take a lot of brain power to read. And I say that in the nicest way possible.
Right, yeah.
I think I'm going to read the next book, but not right now, but eventually I will.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else we need to...
Well, I mean, you mentioned something about going on a journey, and there is a journey that I am embarking on. Surprise, I'm pregnant. Woo! So, yeah, I am having a baby girl. This is going to be my first child, and she will be here in August. So stay tuned. Yeah. Stay tuned as we kind of develop some sort of possible, like, maternity leave plan. There may be a little bit of time off from the podcast when she makes her arrival in August, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be in the second trimester and start to feel better, because Shelby can attest that the recording schedule for this has been very precarious because I just hadn't felt good. So other moms, I'm sure, can relate, but it's just like there's always something ailing you. So very excited to kind of get my quality of life back, at least for a brief period of time.
Yes, a bunch of my other women friends, they're like, oh, the second trimester is the best.
Yeah.
So.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Well, your middle name was Elizabeth, so you should name her Elizabeth and call her Lizzie after the podcast. Just saying. I
mean, Elizabeth, at least as a middle name, is not out of the realm of possibility. That is a family name, so very much a possibility. But my husband really wants to, like, marinate on the name thing for a while, and I'm like, I would like to name her today.
I have my names picked out. Absolutely. They're named after book characters, so.
Oh, nice. I have a list, like a working list, but I have just never been that kind of person that's, I'm automatically thinking of Charlotte from Sex and the City, who, like, from the time she's, like, 11, 12 years old, has this, like, name picked out and, like, is dead set, heart set on this name. I've never really been like that, so it's kind of, like, a new process, and it's definitely a challenge because he likes to take his time a little bit with things when I am a little bit more like, let's get the show on the road. So.
I can say I relate to that scenario too. I am like, no, let's make a decision right now.
Correct.
So, well, like, when I'm talking to some people and they're like, no, let's just think about it. I'm like, no, make a decision now.
Correct. That's the correct way to live life.
Okay, so now that we've been yapping for almost 10 minutes, also, our first episodes dropped yesterday, so we are very excited to have some new people on our journey with us, and we have the next episode, Picture Day. Hopefully you've listened to it by now, and so we're excited to officially jump on this journey. So
yeah. We're excited to have you with us.
Yes, absolutely. And tell your friends about us. Okay, so this is season 1, episode 3, When Moms Attack. The original air date is January 26, 2001. So that is a little over 24 years ago. Okay, so we start off with animated Lizzie. I know what you're thinking, but I have the situation totally under control. I've been packing for this overnight science field trip since, like, last year. And I put on here, one, I never went on overnight field trips, and as a student and as a teacher, as a current teacher, that just would be something I would not sign up for.
I actually have, and mine was actually the science club, which I was not a member of the science club, but my high school had a marine biology program, and I was a lab tech my senior year. So all of the lab techs were also invited to go on this like 3-day trip to Dauphin Island Sea Lab, and we got to go out on a boat and collect samples. It was a really neat and fun trip, and like the people that went were really fun. But from an adult perspective, yeah, I can't imagine being a teacher that chaperones a bunch of,
No.
You know, my trip was ages like 14 to 17 or 18. Like, we were something else.
So I went on, when I taught middle school, I went on a day-long field trip to the Georgia Aquarium. Let me tell you, I was exhausted for like 3 days after, because you had like your own little group for us, and so that was like 15 kids. I didn't have any parent chaperones. It was just me with 15 children, 12 and 13-year-olds. Okay.
Well, this is animated Lizzie talking, and I'm loving here with animated Lizzie. She has this like Mary Poppins-esque bag where she's shoving like a whole canoe and an entire charcoal grill into the bag. So I just thought that was like a funny little detail that was included.
I don't know, like, how long are you going to be there? All right, so next she says, am I insane? I can't pack that. I might as well pack the pink ducky pajamas, which get referenced quite a few times in this. Mm-hmm. And then Mr. Snuggles, I can't live it down if I brought you. Real Lizzie says that. And we also hear Mr. Snuggles referenced a lot throughout the series as well. And then we go back to animated Lizzie. Here's the lowdown on our trip. Downside, bugs, snakes, my science teacher, Mr. Pettis, who is Phil Diffie's dad from the Future. That was him.
Wow.
Yeah. And then upside, 48 hours in the woods, parentless, just me, Miranda, and Gordo. It's like Survivor, but for school credits.
Love the Survivor call out here.
Yes, yes. And then so we see on the phone that the three of them are talking, Lizzie, Miranda, and Gordo, and they're going through and like go through their checklist. So flashlight, check, non-dorky pajamas, check. And then Matt bursts in and says, Mom wants to know if you have batteries for your flashlight. Lizzie says, Mom, Matt's on the phone. And this was such a problem that today's young people don't know about, is when your siblings like get on the other house phone and can listen and talk on the same line as you, and not that. This is that I forgot about that. That like
I didn't have this problem.
Out of my memory.
I did not grow up with siblings, so this was not a problem that I can relate to. But
in on phone calls.
Do I understand? Yes. Can I like actually relate to it because this is something that happened to me? No.
So Joe says, respect your sister's privacy, and then she asks, do you have batteries for that flashlight? She goes, Mom, I'm talking to my friends. She goes, and this is Joe on the other phone as well, on the same line, and she starts chit-chatting. Hey, Gordo. Hey, Miranda. Hey, Mrs. McGuire. And then she goes, you guys had the best time camping out, staying up late, telling ghost stories. Oh, I remember. And then Lizzie says, I didn't pack enough clean underwear to get me through the weekend. And she goes, oh my, bye guys. Gordo says, brilliant ruse. Miranda says, have you guys gotten the talk yet? Gordo says, you mean the stick with your buddy talk? No, but I'm sure it's coming. And then he says, see you guys on the bus. If I don't get lost first. He adds in there, because, stick with your buddy. He doesn't have one yet. And then Lizzie says, Mom, I'm old enough to pack by myself. Plus, it's only overnight. And then Joe goes on a rant about how she's not just staying at Miranda's house, where if she forgets one thing, that Joe can just swing by and drop it off. And then we get a zoom in on Joe's face, and she goes, I want you to listen to your chaperone and stick with your buddy. And animated Lizzie says, disappear once in a while when you're 6, and then you're branded for life. So, Matt says, why can't I go camping? And Sam says, we'll go camping this weekend with your mom in the house. And I wrote, sounds like my kind of camping. Glamping. No, I would not have participated in this camping field trip. I would have been like, absolutely not. Not for me. Matt says, but it's not the same. I mean, you won't even let me light a campfire in the living room. And then Joe says, oh, he's such a wet blanket. And then, again, she asks Lizzie about the toilet paper, where Lizzie insists that she does not have to pack any toilet paper. And Joe is being consistent about packing toilet paper. And animated Lizzie says, if humiliating me were an Olympic event, my mother would take home the gold. They're literally in their kitchen, so who is she humiliated in front of? Her family? Like, chill out.
And it's like they know Joe's antics better than anybody would.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And I would hope that Lizzie didn't really care at that point. All right. We go to school, and we see Kate, and she is, like, putting on her skinny sunglasses, and I wrote out to the side Kate's outfit in all caps because she had on purple camo tank top and blue camo cargo pants.
Literally what I said was a moment for Kate's camo on camo getup in 2 different color palettes.
Yes, and she had pigtails, and I think she had a camo bag, too. That was a darker
Yes.
color. And she asked Lizzie if she remembered to pack Mr. Snuggles, and Lizzie says, Mr. Snuggles? Like, she doesn't know who she's talking about. And Kate says, Lizzie's trying to play it cool, but she's just really not good at it. And Kate says, you know, your fuzzy little piggy that you can't sleep without. One time, at a sleepover, Lizzie forgot to pack Mr. Snuggles, and her mommy had to come and drop him off. Oh, and you had those great pajamas, too. And then she goes, what were they? Pink puppies? And Miranda says, they were ducks, not puppies. And then she says, did your mommy remember to pack your pink ducky pajamas, or has she stopped shopping at Dorks R Us? And then Gordo says, so Kate, he has his camcorder, throwback. He says, besides getting an F in science, what else do you expect to find in the woods today?
And here I said, for the last 2 episodes, it's been Miranda with the diabolical comebacks. Today, it's Gordo.
Gordo will surprise you, for sure.
Yeah.
And then Kate says, to tell you that, I would have to talk to you, which I don't. And she storms off. And then Gordo says, I wonder if Spielberg started this way. And so Lizzie and Miranda are talking. Lizzie's like, you helped Kate in that argument. And she was like, what are you talking about? She goes, no, they were pink duckies. And Miranda was just like, I tried. You know what, Lizzie? That's what you get for making Miranda take the flame for you with the Kate stuffing her bra rumors.
That's so true.
That's what you get.
So true.
You should have taken care of that problem way before you actually did. Gordo says, I'm off to record adolescent milestones. Which I thought was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Always saying things that middle schoolers would not. And we also see Danny Kessler and Ethan Kraft again. One of the few episodes. One of the 2 episodes.
Where we get both.
Yeah. And Gordo says, Danny, what do you expect to find in the woods? And Danny gives an idiotic response with something like, when wild animals attack. And Gordo says, repeat after me. Would you like fries with that? And Danny's like, huh?
Here I said, this is how you know how young they were because of how high-pitched Danny's voice is.
Huh? Yes, oh my gosh. And then Ethan, he pans the camera and is recording Ethan on his camcorder now and says, that's an interesting choice of clothing for a camping trip. Care to explain? And Ethan says, get that camera out of my grill, dog. Because
So
Ethan
funny.
at this point is still supposed to be like the mean bully jock guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which quickly changes in his next appearance in the series, I think. And then Lizzie says, that was almost the shortest filmmaking career ever. And Gordo says, get me before Mr. Pettis comes in. And then I thought, I just had to make a comment here. Lizzie says, what do you expect to find in the woods? And Gordo says he really likes animals. And he starts saying, he gets interrupted, I really like bears. Gordo, if you see a bear in the woods, you're donezo. Like,
you do
not want to see a bear in the woods. Like, absolutely not. And I would think Gordo would be smart enough to realize that.
You would think.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Pettis, aka Phil Diffie's dad, comes in and announces that there's been a small problem with the girl's chaperone. Mrs. Stebble ate something in the cafeteria, which we established in the very first episode that their cafeteria food was very
luxurious.
Yes, luxurious. They had McNuggets. You could get as much as you want. You could serve yourself.
Fresh salad. Everything was like green, crisp, fresh.
Yeah, so this is just a trope that they needed. He goes, well, no need to badmouth the cafeteria, but don't worry, we don't have to cancel because we found a last-minute replacement. And they keep going through like different scenarios of different people that they don't want to be chaperones. We get our first mention of Coach Kelly.
Yes.
The rhythmic gymnastics coach. And then Gordo says, it'll be better than anyone than Mr. Pettis. I put a frog in his lab coat on Monday, and it's still there today.
Ooh.
Gordo, how did you get that close to see? But, yeah. Lizzie says, and she gets Gordo's camcorder out and says, let's see who our mystery chaperone is. And da-da-da-da, round of applause, it's Mrs. McGuire. And Lizzie starts to crash out. And animated Lizzie says, this is not happening. Not happening, not happening. And she says, Mom, what are you doing here? And Joe says, aren't you listening? Mrs. Stebble ate in the cafeteria. And she goes, Mom, I swear I won't get lost. Joe says, no, you won't get lost because I'm going to be your buddy. And don't worry, I won't embarrass you because remember, I'm a cool mom.
That's right.
Megan, when you're about to have a daughter, please don't ever say in front of her and her friends that you are the cool mom.
If you have to say it out loud, you're not a cool mom. I'm so sorry. I mean, I say that, but
it's true.
Mrs. George in Mean Girls said, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. And in fact, she was a cool mom, so.
Yeah, I guess it's circumstantial.
Case by case scenario.
For sure. And Lizzie says, like she hasn't gone to school with these people most of her life. She says, McGuire is a common name. Maybe people will think it's a coincidence.
And here I have to point out that animated Lizzie is putting on a disguise, and this disguise is a blue and yellow bandana, a purple wig, sunglasses, and a red lip.
I thought that was hilarious. Oh my gosh. She really pulled out all the stops. And then Kate saunters up and says, Hi, Mrs. McGuire. Did Lizzie forget to pack Mr. Snuggles again? And Joe says, Mr. Snuggles wasn't invited, but I did remember to bring enough toilet paper for everyone.
And here I said, this is not cool mom behavior, Joe.
No, Joe. You're going to be gone for maybe 24 hours. Like, I don't think you need that much toilet paper.
No.
So now we cut over to Matt and Sam, who are alone without the women of the house. And Matt says, where's Mom? Sam says, on the field trip with Lizzie. And then Matt says, Mom is chaperoning Lizzie's field trip. Lizzie's gonna hate that. Cool. And Sam says, it's just us men tonight. To which Matt starts marching around the kitchen going, men, 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 and like pumping his fist. And then Sam says, why don't we see what Mom left us for dinner? And they take it out of the refrigerator, open up a casserole. When you get the camera angle, it's just like your POV is you are the tuna noodle casserole.
Correct.
Staring up at them. And it says, it's that tuna noodle casserole that she's been trying to get us to eat for the past 3 weeks.
And here there's like background screaming. I know we talked about kind of the post-production like sound effects and things that have been added. This is a funny moment with the screaming in the background. And my husband was actually watching this episode along with me. And even he was grossed out by the tuna noodle casserole.
It was like green and what? As Sam says, that's just plain mean.
Yeah.
They're talking about how to heat it up, and Sam says, "I don't think heating is gonna help. I think it's just gonna make it angry."
And here I said, Sam is actually so funny in such an underrated way.
He is. He's a pretty funny guy. Nonchalant funny.
Yes.
So Matt starts to freak out and says, "We're gonna starve, aren't we?" It's just like that movie where we all starved, isn't it? And he says, "No, son, we're gonna cook." He goes, "We're gonna starve." And this is Matt looking straight into the camera and screaming and echoing in post-production, "We're gonna starve." So, and Sam tries to reassure him, "Don't worry, your spiky little head. I've got it under control." I can't wait to talk about what they decide to try to cook.
I have notes.
So now we're back on the camping trip. Mr. Pettis says, "The object of this afternoon's hike is to identify as many species of plants and animals as possible. We're going to split into 2 groups. The girls will be led by Mrs. McGuire, and they'll be the Tagi." And we hear Joe go, "Yeah!" Like, she's so excited. "And then the boys will be led by myself, and we'll be the Pagong. The group who identifies the most species of plants and animals will not have to eat a rat for dinner." Dead silence because he was trying to be funny. And Mr. P says, "I'm kidding." And then he finds the frog that Gordo put in his pocket, and he says, "The little guy must have jumped into my pocket when we got off the bus." And then he, like, tosses him, and he goes, "Hop away, little fellow." And he does not hop away. To which
you hear this, like, plunk into, like, a puddle where, like, clearly a dead frog has just been, like, plunked down into the mud.
And he says, "He must be nocturnal." We'll go with that.
Like Lizzie the lizard? Well, she hibernates.
She hibernates.
Not quite the same, but yeah.
Okay, anyways, the winners will get to relax after the hike, and the losers have to dig up earthworms for the class worm farm, again with the class pets. He says, "Any questions?" "Yes, Kate." And Kate goes, "You don't mean worms from the ground, do you?" To which I said, "LOL, me."
That is so you. And then what Mr. Pettis says is what I would say back to you, which is, "Yes, Kate, worms from the earth. Earthworms."
And Kate says, "Can I bring a doctor's note on Monday to excuse me from this?" And he just says, "No." "Then how do I get out of worm digging?" He goes, "Identify more plants and animals than the boy." Which, as a teacher, I relate to that last sentiment of having to repeat yourself again after you clearly said the directions. And then Kate says, "Mrs. McGuire, we better not lose. I am so not digging for worms." And Joe, again, is trying to be funny. She goes, "Then we so need to win." And she goes, "Okay, girls, who are we?" And then they all just stare at her. And she goes, "And you guys go, Tagi." And the girls very unenthusiastically go, "Tagi."
Tagi.
So, and she goes, "What are we going to do?" And she goes, "You guys go, win." And the girls are like, "Win."
Win.
Do you want to do it together? I'll be Joe. I'll be Joe. You be the girls, okay? Who are we?
Tagi.
And what are we going to do?
Win.
I felt like I was just talking to my 9th graders.
The enthusiasm is not in the room with us.
No, never. Okay. So Animated Lizzie says, "Tonight on Lizzie Vision, when good moms go bad." And then we see the next scene. The girls are starting to identify, and Miranda goes, "I was right. It is a yellow belly sapsucker."
They had to give her the most out-of-pocket thing to identify and say. Like, she couldn't have been like, "I was right. It is an oak tree." It had to be a yellow-bellied sapsucker.
It can't just be like, "It's a bluebird."
It's It's a robin.
The most, like, obscure bird.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joe says, excellent job. High five, girlfriend.
Not cool mom behavior.
No. And then animated Lizzie says, my mom just high-fived my best friend. And the worst part is she actually thinks she's being cool. And then they document that they found the yellow-bellied sapsucker. So now we are back to Sam and Matt trying to cook, and they have ingredients, and Sam is very advantageous and is trying to cook duck, or how do you say it? Duck
l'orange.
Duck l'orange, yes. And to which they are listing out their ingredients, and he says, dozen oranges, got it. One whole duck, and Matt goes, we've got hamburger and fudge sickles. And Sam says, duck isn't entirely necessary for duck l'orange. We'll just improvise.
Oh, no.
Which I said, this always makes me think of Brie Vandekamp from Desperate Housewives, because that was one of the things she would cook for her dinners, was duck l'orange. And then Sam says, the best chefs always think on their feet. And Matt says, I've got a bad feeling about this. And Sam says, me too. But if you've ever, like, I've Googled just for, like, kicks and giggles, the instructions for duck l'orange.
Uh-oh.
It is
Complicated.
Intense. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. My husband is a great cook, a wonderful cook, and can be a pretty ambitious cook. And this is not something that even my husband would ever attempt.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just know that it's hard when I immediately associated it with Brie Vandekamp's cooking.
Yeah.
So now we're back in the woods, and Joe was reading them a story about the yellow-bellied sapsucker. Which were they all like asleep at that point?
That's what they made it look like. I doubt that they actually fell asleep, but I mean,
they looked bored.
Clearly the point is that it was so boring and so long-winded that everybody just needed to lay down.
Which is relatable. When you've been outside all day, everyone needs those few moments of like, I just need to lay down for a second. And then Joe becomes suspicious, and she goes, it's really quiet. Too quiet. And she goes, do you see something? And Lizzie hollers out, is anybody there? And then Gordo...
Like they're going to answer.
Literally, that's what I thought too. And then Gordo and all the boys jump out with water guns and goes, Pagong! And they're like, Pagong! Over and over again. And attack the girls with water guns, thus ruining all of their notes and drenching them. And Lizzie gets understandably angry. I was already outside. I didn't want to be outside. I was having to look at all these yellow-bellied sapsuckers. And now I'm being sprayed with a water gun. No, thank you. And Lizzie says to Gordo, how could you do that? And Gordo says, I was just getting in touch with my hunter-warrior instincts. It's the survival of the fittest. And Gordo blames it on Ethan. And then Lizzie starts screaming and chasing after Gordo. And Joe says, don't leave your buddy.
Oh my gosh.
And so the girls have to dig for earthworms because all of their notes got soaked with the water guns, and the girls are lamenting. Lizzie says, this is so unfair. This is after they just dug for worms, and they're like cleaning up. She goes,
and they're covered in dirt, like faces, hair must, like everything.
Yes, they're unhappy little campers. So Lizzie says, that was so unfair. How could we have identified anything? Our guidebooks were soaked. And Miranda says, Mr. Pettis should have disqualified them. Kate says,
and I have to say that I agree. I mean, that was a really unfair disadvantage, so.
That they should have had extra guidebooks, just because people lose them and stuff. Kate says, that was the grossest thing I've ever done. Miranda says, I can't believe I touched a worm. And Lizzie says, a worm? Try hundreds of worms. And Kate gets all mad and says, you know, this is all your mother's fault. She's a terrible leader. What a waste of a manicure. And I would also be upset if I just got a manicure and then I had to go dig for worms.
That's so true. This episode is honestly so you-coded.
Like, all how they're all in, like, cute clothes out in the woods. I'm like, where you should probably be in athleisure wear, but
Yeah.
that's not how we rolled in 2001.
This is before the peak of athleisure anyway.
Oh, man. That is just one thing I love about the time period we live in is athleisure wear is cute, you know?
So true.
So Miranda suggests getting back at the boys, and Lizzie says, earthworms in their bunks. And Joe walks in as she's saying that. She goes, absolutely not, Lizzie. Animated Lizzie says, at 6:27 on Friday night, my mother destroyed what was left of my life. Joe says, there is no way we are putting earthworms in the boys' bunks tonight. And Animated Lizzie says, forget the boys. Mom's getting earthworms in her bunk tonight.
And here I said, this is so funny because you've got Animated Lizzie that's like marching like a army lieutenant with like a little line of worms that's like squiggling behind her.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That was so good. Miranda, I lost my place. She goes, oh yeah, someone would have to take them in there. And do we really want to touch the worms again? Forget it. And, oh wait, no, that's not Miranda. That's Joe that says that. Or is it? I don't remember, but Joe's the one that says, forget it. Boys like earthworms.
True.
Lizzie says, well, we have to get them back, and the only thing we have more of than earthworms is toilet paper. Maybe we should fill their bunks with toilet paper. Joe says,
ding, ding, ding.
That's a great idea. And then, so they start scheming, cooking up what they're going to come up with. And now we're back with Sam and Matt. And Sam says, maybe we shouldn't have tried to make duck l'orange. And Matt says, especially not with hamburger. And Sam says, the chicken noodle casserole sounds pretty appetizing. And Matt says, that's just the hunger talking. Dad, are we going to die? Mind you, they're like alone for like less than 24 hours.
Correct. And we have to talk about the attempt at duck l'orange one last time before they completely abandon this. They have taken the hamburger meat and shaped it into a duck shape, crammed whole oranges on top of it. And then the coup de grace is that they have put it in the microwave.
Men.
Men, truly.
Men. Oh my gosh. So now back at the campsite, Miranda says, now this is fun. And they're like getting their war paint on, like using lipstick to put on like war paint on their face.
Classic.
And Lizzie is angry that everybody else is having fun except for her. But Miranda does make a good point, and she goes, you wouldn't be saying that if it was not your mom. And, oh wait, no. Lizzie says to Miranda, you wouldn't be saying that this was fun if your mom was here doing this. And Miranda says, my mom wouldn't lead a midnight teepee raid on the boys. And Joe starts to like try to rile the troops up. And Kate says, what if we get into more trouble? And Joe tries to give like an inspirational speech. And she goes, yeah, you may get in trouble. Well, you might as well stay in the tent and let the boys have their victory. Stay in the tent and maybe you won't get detention. Or you can follow me and TP.
Love it.
And Miranda hands Lizzie the war paint, which is just lipstick. And Lizzie says, stop encouraging her. And Miranda again says, if this was anybody else's mom, you'd be having the time of your life. And Lizzie says, exactly, but it's not. And Joe says, we have one more chance. We have this one chance, this one moment to get back at the boys. Don't let digging for earthworms be in vain. Who are
That's right.
we? And then they very enthusiastically say,
Tagi!
what are we going to do?
Win!
And they're all into it at this point. And Joe says, let's do this. To which then Lizzie puts on this very pathetic, just little, very stubbornly, single lines of lipstick under her eyes.
And in this whole sequence where we're getting the actual TPing of the boys' tent, the whole thing is so Parent Trap coded because you've got the toilet paper, you've got the honey, you've got the shaving cream, you've got the tripwire that ends up having the balloon, just all of the things that like literally checks all of the boxes. And I'm not even mad that this is a direct ripoff because it's just so good.
Yes, I thought the same thing too. I was like, this is the Parent Trap. But, yeah, I'm not mad about it. So, the girls are TPing the boys' tent, which, again, I always thought this in the Parent Trap, too. I'm a very light sleeper. There is no way on God's green earth that many people are going into a bunk that I'm not going to hear it. Because I hear everything at night.
And they've got flashlights, too.
Yes.
So, like... Between the noise of them coming in, you've got half a dozen girls in there, the noise of the girls inside the tent, the flashlights, and then the stuff being actually physically put on your body. Like, someone was bound to wake up.
And you know some of those girls are in there cackling.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be able to hold it together.
No, me either. So the girls are in there, and they hear Mr. Pettis coming, and Joe says... to get out, run back to the tent. And the girls get out, and it's just Joe left there as she tries to crouch down and hide very pathetically. And Mr. Pettis shines the light directly on her and says, Mrs. McGuire?
And here I have to point out, you see the overhead lights come on, which, I mean, overhead lights in a tent, plot hole. But at any rate, you see the overhead lights come on. You see the boys waking up all covered in stuff. And you see this one boy that swings his legs over the side of the bunk and puts his feet down in shaving cream. And this boy was sleeping in jeans.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Federal prison for sleeping in jeans.
I have to go back and watch it.
But that's such boy behavior, too, you know? We're like, oh, I didn't pack pajamas. I'll just sleep in my jeans.
Literally, that's such a boy thing to do. And at that moment, was it Mr. Pettis that trips the wire?
It is Mr. Pettis that trips the wire.
And he gets the balloon dunked on his head. Mm-hmm. So, which that's what he gets for having letting the boys win when they got the girls with water guns and got their guidebooks soaked. So, you know what Taylor Swift says about karma. All right, so back with,
Well, and we have to point out, too, that after he trips the wire and the balloon lands on his head, Joe whispers, Tagi, one last time.
We get a really quick flash back to the McGuire house where, logically, which would have been the first thing I would have done,
naturally,
is they said, pizza's good with Sam and Matt. They finally gave up on the duck and ordered pizza like normal people. And then I thought this was a really heartwarming moment. Oh, also, while they're eating their pizza, they're in the backyard with like an inflatable kiddie pool where they have set all of the pots and pans on fire. And Sam has the water hose, and he's like spraying down all of the pots and pans that caught fire because of the unfortunate duck incident. But Matt, very sweetly, in my opinion, puts his arm around his dad and says, Dad, we've got to hang out more often. And that just really, man, that was sweet. So they're sitting there eating their pizza, and they will not starve tonight. And then the next morning, Mr. Pettis and Joe are arguing, and Mr. Pettis is like, what was with all the toilet paper you brought? And Joe accuses him of being unfair. She goes, I can't even believe I'm having this conversation, Mr. Pettis. I'm being unfair, and the girls are watching all of this happen. And Gordo is also watching it happen, and he goes up to Lizzie and says, detention for a year is the odds-on favorite. Like, the kids are all, like, taking bets on what the punishment's gonna be.
Yeah.
And Lizzie goes, you're not helping. And Kate says, this whole thing was your stupid idea. Now your mom's going to tell, and we're all going to be in trouble. Thanks, Lizzie. And Miranda jumps to Joe's defense and says, well, you did it too. And Kate gives us one of her classics. Whatever.
And I do have to point out here that Kate is in another camo on camo getup. This one is all purple, and to be honest, it looks pretty chic.
It looked the same as the other one, and then from the one from yesterday, I thought it was the same outfit. Was it not?
No, this one's purple on purple. Yeah.
Okay.
The other one was like blue and pink, I think, and this one she's monochrome this time.
I thought she had the same outfit on from the day before, and I was about to be like, Kate Sanders,
you're an outfit repeater.
I was about to have an existential crisis.
No crashing out here.
No crashing out. This is light and fun here. So Lizzie says, I cannot get detention. People like me don't do well in detention. Which is, we will see when we get to the episode where she gets detention.
Oh, yeah.
She goes, I'll never survive. It'll go on my permanent record. I won't be able to get into college, and I'll end up dipping cones at the local dairy freeze. And this is such a trope from Disney shows back then of your permanent record.
Mm-hmm.
And
One wrong move and you can't get into college.
I know. I'm just like, what is a permanent record? Because
it doesn't exist.
Many of my years as a student and then many of my years as a teacher, and I'm like, never said those words.
Mm-mm.
And Gordo says, I like those cones.
Ever the helpful encourager.
And then they just stare at him and he goes, I'll be going now. And then again we hear Pettis and Joe arguing, and he says, this is not how a chaperone should act. And then I guess, does he walk off? Yeah, he walks off after that.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe says, okay kids, listen up. And Miranda says, are we going to have detention for forever? Joe says, when you're an adult, you learn all of your actions have consequences. And Kate goes, knew it. And Joe says, and you have to live with those consequences, good or bad. Miranda, it's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad. Joe, but one good thing about being a kid is that you have parents who can sometimes bail you out. I told Mr. Pettis I acted alone. And they all just, like, stare at her. And they're
stare
like,
at her blankly.
What? And I'm like, what about these words are you not comprehending? And she goes, I took the rap. And they were like, oh, okay. And I'm like, why did she have to say that second part? Like, what about I acted alone do you not get?
Teenager speak.
Ugh. And then Animated Lizzie says, okay, just when you're ready to trade her in for a new model, your mom goes and does something pretty cool, and you realize she's pretty much the coolest mom in the whole world. To which Lizzie and Joe have this really heartwarming moment, and she runs up to her mom and she goes, what have I done to annoy you now? And Lizzie says, I guess I've been a little hard on you. And Joe's like, yeah. And Lizzie says, and I'm sorry, because I'm really glad that you came along on this trip. And Joe is really, really heart-touched by this. And she goes, you are? Lizzie says, yes. And she said, and Joe, honey, I know having your mom along wasn't exactly what you had in mind for this trip. And Lizzie says, well, not exactly, but I think everyone kind of wishes that you were their mom right now. And I'm really glad you're mine.
Aww.
Yes. To which then Joe tries to give her a high five. And she says, high fives are really dorky though. And then Lizzie joins in and says, who are we? And all the girls holler back, what are we going to do?
Win!
Let's go get on the bus. Lizzie goes up to Kate. Again, like, I don't know why Lizzie is so afraid of Kate, because she is always standing up to Kate. Like, we see it again. Like, she's not afraid of her. And she says, Kate, I think you owe me an apology. And she goes, no, I don't. And Lizzie says, you're right. You owe my mom an apology. You know, without my mom, this trip would have been canceled. She dug earthworms with us. She took the blame for something we did. And now you owe her an apology. And Kate's like, you're insane. Lizzie, whatever happened to the Kate that I used to be friends with? the Kate I used to have sleepovers with, or the Kate that I have pictures of with her favorite teddy bear, Mr. Stuart Wugsby?
And here I said, when
Blackmail.
Lizzie can't get through with logic, she goes for the jugular.
She does. She's gonna blackmail her. And Kate falls for it as she goes, where's your mom? Mrs. McGuire? To which we assume Kate goes and apologizes for her behavior towards Joe. And then we see them back at school, and Lizzie is Miss Popular, and all these kids are saying hey to her in the hallway. And Animated Lizzie says, the next Monday at school, my mom was pronounced coolest mom ever, of all time, in the history of the universe. And Gordo says she could always lead a next month's teepee raid during the museum field trip. And he says, Lizzie, is your mom chaperoning that? And Lizzie says, I don't think she'll be chaperoning for a while. And we end with Animated Lizzie saying, sometimes you get the best of both worlds. A cool mom and a parent banned from all school field trips. The end.
And we get outtakes here. I know we've talked about in previous episodes how I don't think that this is consistent across all episodes, but we'll talk about them when we get them. My favorite is the outtakes of the water balloon not bursting on Mr. Pettis's head and the little sound effects that they put with it, because it's like horns honking kind of every time it bounces off his head and doesn't burst, and it's in slow motion too. So you see this water balloon that drops down, and it's spherical as it's dropping, and then it plops on his head and just like pancakes out, but doesn't burst.
I thought that was funny too.
It's hilarious.
Yes, good. And then we see Kate, Ashley Brialt, like actually screaming at something about the earthworms, I think, and I was like, okay, Kate, she really dug into her character. All right, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Loved it. I have to say my favorite outfit was Kate's at the very end with the purple on purple camo. That was my personal. But I do want to give honorable mention to same scene when they're about to get back on the bus and go back to school. Lizzie's got the like mini space buns.
Oh, yes, I saw that too. I also liked Kate's outfit, and then I liked her original camo outfit because she had skinny sunglasses on.
Ugh, the skinny sunglasses. And the skinny sunglasses have made such a comeback.
They have. I also appreciated that there were several, like, bandanas.
Yes.
The one that you tie up under your hair. You know, I saw some of those in Target the other day.
I used to wear those
Me too.
literally all the time as a kid. So it's kind of like crazy that they're coming back, but I just can't envision myself like wearing one now.
I know. I want to so bad, but I just don't think it would work, you know? Like, where
I just feel like I've aged out of that. Like, I don't know.
Where would I wear it? I have no idea. Out running errands? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What was your favorite line from the episode?
It was probably Gordo's roast of Kate, saying, aside from an F in science, what do you hope to find?
I agree. I liked... Hold on, let me find it. Get that camera out of my grill, dog.
That one was good too.
Ethan had one line this entire episode.
And it was your favorite line.
And it was, get that... I just love Ethan, man.
This is the last bit of the original Ethan that we get to see before they start to kind of take his character in a new direction.
Yeah. I know, Ethan. I guess next we have pool party, finally, even though I said it was supposed to be this week.
We've really been stringing you guys along about the pool party episode, and for that we're sorry.
Yes. It is, like I said before, very basic and piloty. So I can't wait to recap that one.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 3. If you're following along with us, be sure to watch Pool Party before next Monday. We will see you at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube and Spotify. We are working to get up on Apple Podcasts right now, but Apple makes you jump through a bunch of hoops. So stay tuned on that. And if you like us, please subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share us with your friends.
right. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week at 9 a.m. on Monday. We're outie.